Patrick Mahomes had arguably the least amount of protection that he's had in his career this season. He was sacked, blitzed, and hit at the highest rate in his career. The only season he was pressured more was his very first year as a starter back in 2017, or 2018 rather. So Tim, can you put this in perspective, especially after what we saw at the Super Bowl, how critical it is that Kansas City gets this right?
It's critical on a couple levels, Hannah. First off, just the performance and production, right? You need to protect your quarterback. It's still a dependent position. As great as Patrick Mahomes is at creating offense, like you do need people around you. You need to be protected. The second one is this: he's their largest investment. You need to protect him. You need to keep him healthy. It's not about just the 2025 season or the 2026 season. It's about his future, which I'm sure they feel like is hopefully at least another decade. So it's also about just keeping him healthy. That's important. So I just think across the board, in terms of why it is like the number one issue for the team, is because it's all about Patrick Mahomes. Everything is how well you're going to play, how far you're going to go, and how you're going to protect your investment going forward. So at every stop, that needs to be what they are focused on.
Yes, and it's 100% about Patrick Mahomes, but it's also about the money, too. They just signed Creed Humphrey to a big-time contract, likely won't be able to afford to pay Trey Smith. So what do? I think you go and attack that offensive line position in free agency. One name that I like a lot is a name in Will Fries, not just because of name. Yes, I like Fries, but also because when he played last year, the last several years he's been a top-level guard, but he had a lower leg injury last season, so he missed the last part of last season. You may be able to get this top-level guard who's nasty, who's physical, loves to finish, but you may be able to get him at a relative discount based off of the injury. And so now you bolster that offensive line without paying top-level high market value. So for me, if Trey Smith goes, which he likely will based off what the value is going to command, go replace him with a guy like Will Fries.
I don't know. My takeaway from that is still that you like fries. Okay, but you don't seem like you eat a lot of them.
Fries. I love fries.
Graz, who doesn't, by the way? Graz, every year it just seems like other teams would love to bottle up whatever Kansas City does. I mean, no matter what happens with their personnel, they seem to be able to reload and get back to the Super Bowl. Do you anticipate that being the case again this offseason? Is this more challenging than the past?
Well, it'll be more challenging, especially if Travis Kelce retires. That would be a seismic impact on their offense. They've been able to count on him for so long, and they'd have to change a lot about how they play. In terms of the offensive line, there are guys in their pipeline. They drafted Kingsley Suamataia in the second round last year, hoping he could be a left tackle of the future. It did not work out this year, but that doesn't mean they're done with him. They'll work on him and Wanya Morris and some of the younger offensive linemen on their roster and see if they can get them ready to be starters. And yes, I would anticipate they would augment in free agency, and they have some issues, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball with free agents as well. But it's not a stretch to say this is a front office and a coaching staff that knows how to get its roster in shape for a season. They've been in the last 3 Super Bowls. We talked about Sam Darnold earlier in the show. Interesting to see what the Vikings do with him. Vikings made an interesting procedural move just a few minutes ago. They pushed back the void date on cornerback Byron Murphy's contract. It was supposed to void 23 days before the start of the league year, which is right around now. Now it doesn't void until right before the start of the league year. This is interesting because it means they cannot franchise Byron Murphy, and the fact they did not do the same thing with Darnold's contract means they still can franchise Sam Darnold.
And Sam Darnold is just 27 years old. I think the Vikings would be wise to build around Sam Darnold, no matter what you thought of J.J. McCarthy. And clearly they loved him. They drafted him super high. You still don't know if someone can play until they actually do it. And I think with Sam Darnold, he can be the future there. We're not talking about a 34-year-old quarterback. We're talking about a young quarterback that came into the league before he was old enough to buy a beer. Like, the reality is he's still an ascending player. He fits in what they're doing there in Minnesota. He can play well in that system with that supporting cast. Like, I think you take what you know will work in Minnesota. Plus, Darnold also knows that he can't go back to the Jets. There are some teams that he's just not a fit for that are quarterback needy. And I think that will also work in the Vikings' favor.
Yeah, people do forget. It feels like he's been around forever, just how young Sam Darnold is. But then again, he played so well, but we had those really ugly losses at the end of the season to the Lions and the Rams. Sam, do you agree about going all in on Sam Darnold, like Tim says?
I don't. No, I don't agree on going all in on Sam Darnold. And that's not a knock on Sam Darnold. It's just the fact that you have J.J. McCarthy on your roster, J.J. McCarthy, first-round pick, who you were excited about going into last season before the injury. All of a sudden, now J.J. McCarthy had an opportunity to watch a pro's pro, to watch Sam Darnold have an outstanding career. And so Tim made a great point. You don't know what you have in Sam and J.J. McCarthy, and you won't know if you don't give him an opportunity. He had a chance to sit and to watch as a rookie, to understand what it's like to play a 17-game, 18-week season, to watch it from afar. Now give him an opportunity on a rookie contract to go and take you over the top and show what he can do. Sam Darnold was great, earned himself a great contract, but I think to give him a big-time payday here in Minnesota is going to keep you from seeing what you have in J.J. McCarthy.
I think the money thing is the key point, Sam, because what you do know that you have in J.J. McCarthy is a guy who's cheap. His cap numbers over the next 3 years are going to be $5, $6, $7 million. And the Vikings have built their roster kind of thinking about that. Imagine they're paying Justin Jefferson more money than any other wide receiver in the league makes. You don't necessarily do that if you're also anticipating paying a quarterback at or near the top of the market. So J.J. McCarthy is likely the long-term plan for Minnesota. It's just a question of whether they want to let Darnold leave without getting anything in return or whether they're able to keep him on a short-term situation while J.J. McCarthy recovers from his injury.
If the Chiefs want to make another Super Bowl run, they need to fix one major issue: protecting Patrick Mahomes. And no, this isn't just another generic offensive line needs improvement take. This is a serious problem. This past season, Mahomes was pressured, blitzed, and sacked more than ever before in his career. The only time he faced more heat was back in his first full season as a starter. That's not just a random stat, it's a red flag. Because as incredible as Mahomes is, even he can't keep pulling off miracles if he's constantly running for his life. Think about it. Mahomes is the Chiefs' biggest investment. His health and longevity determine the future of this franchise. It's not just about next season or the one after that. It's about keeping him upright for the next decade. The Chiefs' success starts and ends with him, and that means making his protection priority number one. So here's the question. Do you think the offensive line was the Chiefs' biggest weakness last season? Drop a comment and let's debate. And now let's talk solutions, because fixing this issue isn't as simple as it sounds. All right, we know protecting Mahomes is the top priority, but how do the Chiefs actually fix it? They've already locked in Creed Humphrey with a big contract, but Trey Smith, he's likely gone, and replacing him won't be easy. Now, here's where things get interesting. One name to watch in free agency is Will Fries. And no, not just because his name sounds like a great side. Order. Fries has been a top-level guard for years, and if not for a lower leg injury last season, he'd probably be way out of the Chiefs' price range. But because of that injury, Kansas City might be able to land a tough, physical, top-tier lineman at a discount. This move would give the Chiefs a reliable replacement for Trey Smith without breaking the bank, something crucial as they navigate their salary cap situation. So what do you think? Would you rather the Chiefs sign an experienced veteran like Fries or develop a younger player? Vote in the comments. But even if they fix the O-line, there's another issue that could completely change the Chiefs' offense. And it all depends on one man. Let's be real. Travis Kelce isn't just another tight end. He's the heart of this Chiefs offense. Mahomes and Kelce have built a connection that's nearly impossible to replicate. But here's the problem. Kelce isn't getting any younger. If he decides to retire, the entire offensive identity of this team could change overnight. Think about how much the Chiefs rely on him. Third down, look for Kelce. Need a clutch play. Kelce, take him out of the equation, and suddenly Mahomes doesn't have his go-to target. The offense would have to adjust in a big way. So what's the backup plan? Internally, Noah Gray has shown flashes, but can he step into Kelce's shoes? Or should the Chiefs go after a tight end in free agency or the draft? What do you think? If Kelce retires, do the Chiefs still have a legit shot at the Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments. Now, even if the offense finds a way to adjust, there's another big concern, one that could make or break their season. Offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And right now, the Chiefs have some serious concerns on that side of the ball. Several key defensive players are hitting free agency, which means Kansas City could be facing major holes, especially in the secondary and defensive line. If they don't find the right replacements, stopping elite offenses in the playoffs could become a nightmare. That said, if there's one thing this front office knows how to do, it's rebuild. Brett Veach and Andy Reid have a track record of making smart moves, whether through free agency or the draft. But the pressure is on. So here's the question. Which part of the defense do you think needs the most help? Secondary or pass rush? Drop your take in the comments. With so many changes coming, the big question remains. Can the Chiefs still make it back to the Super Bowl? Let's break it down. So after everything we've covered, the offensive line, Kelce's future, and the defensive concerns, what's the verdict? Can the Chiefs overcome these challenges and make another Super Bowl run? History says yes. This team has faced adversity before, and as long as Mahomes and Andy Reid are leading the way, they'll always be contenders. The key will be how well they adjust. If they shore up the offensive line, find a way to replace Kelce if needed, and reinforce the defense, they'll be right back in the mix. What do you think? Will the Chiefs return to the Super Bowl next season? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you believe in this team, hit that like button and subscribe for all the latest updates.